the sun is shining, there's a bit of a breeze. It's a perfect day for speed Frisbee.
We have two European standouts here.
We are moments away from the opening pull now.
Deep breaths before the madness begins.
Greatest attempt! Oh my goodness, layout to keep it alive! My brains are melting out of my ears! What is going on out there?
Women's Division champions!
Gold medal winners here on the beach. European Beach Ultimate Club champions.
Thank you and enjoy the show.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Game 2 of the European Beach Ultimate Club Championships EBUCC here in Gdańsk, Poland. I am Gigi Morrison, and I'm joined in the booth by Benji Rees. We've got Outsiterz from Slovakia versus Terrible Monkeys from the Czech Republic. Benji, how are you feeling for this game, and how are you feeling this morning?
I must admit, I'm excited. There's always a little bit of yeah, you can feel a little bit of tension and anxiety before you play your first game of a weekend. It's not too dissimilar in the commentary booth, to be honest. You're just kind of waiting to really get into your stride, and you've got to let those early game jitters just accept that they might be there, understand it, and try not to let it affect you too much, especially when your first game of the weekend is on the show pitch and you're being streamed as well. Maybe you do get a little bit wobblier, but feels like pretty good conditions for Ultimate at the moment. It's not too warm. We expect the weather to probably get a little bit wetter and windier as the day goes on. So far, you might be able to see from the flags at the back of the stand on the far side, there is a bit of a breeze that seems to be gusting and swirling. So, yeah, one that's really going to test your capabilities as a thrower.
Yeah, swirling. It does seem to be the first game this morning. We were actually struggling to gauge which direction the wind was going in because all of the flags were flying in different directions.
Yeah, do not let that fool you. I mean, even there you can see that it's not stiff in one direction or another. It's going to be, yeah, a little bit variable as we get underway here. And it's Outsiterz, the Slovaks in the white, going from left to right as we look at it to start the game here.
So first pull received and immediately thrown. Coveted down to the sideline. Kubisova trying to find the dump option, fakes and unfortunately slips out the hand. Terrible Monkeys have got first break opportunity of the game.
The spacing looked off there. Everything was in very tight and congested, and when you're trying to get those short window throws out, it's really easy to not get enough revolution on it.
Clutch looking for a high throw. Receiver there, well boxed out. Bambasova on the end zone line. Trying to find an option. Stall count is rising. It has the high release backhand and then well defended. Swipes out of the air.
Good awareness there from Matusz Kanap because you can feel the stall count riding. So you've got to have your head on a swivel as that one ripped into the hand block.
Almost looked like a face block, but thankfully no one harmed. Offhand, backhand with a layout grab. Oh, that went back and forth, but Terrible Monkeys. First break of the game, first point of the game. Phenomenal stuff.
That throw was silky smooth there from Martin Prak, utilizing that offhand to try and give himself the space. If you're going with the inside-out flick with the high release, that's a really tough throw. But with the offhand, backhand, you maybe just have a little bit of an easier time there to just float it in. And he gets his head up, looks up nice and early, and he's so nonchalant with this. Still requires the layout on the end of it. And Barbara Bambasova looks like she's going to be a key chain mover after the turn here for Terrible Monkeys. Went deep earlier in the point and boxed out well, this time using her length with the extension on the layout.
So an already very exciting start. Here in the mixed division, we have both female matching and male matching players pulling under the ABBA ratio rules. Outsiterz with a second opportunity, immediately looking deep. Has the receiver well caught, scooped up from the ground. Kmetskova. Oh, I completely misread that. That is actually a turnover.
Yeah, I thought she had it, and then I think as she landed, she ground stripped herself. I wondered if, yeah, actually, I was surprised that she wasn't going to lay out for it, and then she scooped it up from close to her ankles, and then tried to get the twist of the disc as well to make sure that she was landing flat and not ground stripping herself, but the sand had other ideas.
Second break chance. Hrtova, flying bid, grabbed. What a way to start, really commanding. 2 points on the board, 2 breaks.
Yeah, Hrtova at that time, full extension for the grab. Collecting the huck that was ripped down this near sideline. Outsiterz passed off a little switch here on this near side to try and maybe stop some more throw and go momentum. And you're feeling, if you want to try and huck it in that narrow window down the sideline, you're welcome to it. You see there that she does get it in her hands, and as she lands, very well spirited there from Kmetskova, says, no, I didn't keep control of it. And you think, huck down the sideline, you don't have a huge margin for error there. Well, maybe your margin for error is a little bit larger when you can have a grab like that on the end of it from Hrtova.
Pull caught, centered. Dishing, looking for the wide swing, offhand. Kmetskova, high release backhand, looking for the receiver, but I thought that traded hands. It doesn't seem to have been. There is a discussion.
Yeah, it did seem like there was a fair amount of contact between the two.
Nic jsem byl, ale že já jsem to nic držel. Tam se tamhle, ne? Jestli to mají. Ale prosím vás, jsem tři. Jo? Tak já musím zeptat, oba.
Yeah, I think they're going to send someone over to have a little look at it. Using the benefit of our high-tech advanced replay stream.
Yeah, I think I was first. Right?
Yeah, it does look to me like the defender actually does get that one first, and the players from both sides come over to have a look at it, and they are going to decide that, yep, turnover stands. Very spirited use of the technology there. Looked at it and said, okay, you know what? I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if it's written in the rules that you can use it, then definitely use it. And that's a fantastic showcase of some spirit. Terrible Monkeys with their third break opportunity. Bushkova down the sideline to Mako. Trying to look for the dump option, doesn't have it. It has to look deep instead. Tries to look for Popovsky, but snags out the air. Kmetskova shooting down the line to Knapp. Kvetan. Beautiful inside shot for Legenyova.
They really utilised the width of the pitch well there, offensively. Outsiterz after the turn. Got the disc towards the near sideline, and then, without too much thinking about it, nothing downfield. Let's take the options, go round to the far side there. And you had, Legenyova on that far sideline, going with the inside shot, but because the cut has developed all the way from the near side, as you see here, Knapp gets rid of the disc, utilise the swing through the centre, and because he's striking all the way from the near sideline, this can be a relatively flat throw. There's a little bit of outside in edge on it, but nothing too exaggerated, and it's a fairly easy catch in the end for Knapp to finally get Outsiterz on the board. I think they'll be a little bit disappointed that they've given Terrible Monkeys so many break chances early, though.
But as you mentioned earlier on, right at the start of the game, this is their first game of the tournament, first game of the weekend. Having to iron out some kinks. That pull really soaring across. Almost thought that would be going out, but that sits beautifully. Fielded well too. Peshkova finds the inside to Svatos. Svatos looking deep. Thought he had two receivers, but neither of them were within the right space to fully commit to the deep.
I'm be honest, I don't know if there's anyone who's fast enough on sand to have been able to catch up to that one. It really kept on going. I think probably expecting the wind to hold that one up a little bit, and it did not oblige.
And so far we found that the wind to the right-hand end zone where the disc had just recently flown at has been the trickiest to throw into so far. Most of the scores happening to the left-hand side. Dishing back and forth between handlers, finding a slashing undercut, trying to find the dump option, but an accepted foul. Oh, not accepted yet, a discussion of a foul. Dual 18s marking up against each other.
Yeah, Sedlar up against Knapp, and I think Sedlar's just arguing that I was static in position, but it is eventually, as you suggested, an accepted foul.
Check back in, looking immediately for the Dominator style front of stack. Going to knees. Kautner trying to find an option behind the back, does eventually find Molnar. Danek, back to Molnar. Slightly high. Ooh, first break, trading breaks here now, Benji.
Yeah, Outsiterz leveling things up, still one break down, but that's a good sign for their D-line. First opportunity with the disc, and they're able to work it down the field for a score. A couple of situations, they got themselves into slightly awkward positions or on high stalls, but what I liked about what they did there was, rather than look at an option for a little bit and then, okay, let's look at another option, is, okay, I've activated you now, and I'm just going to trust that you have that time and space to get yourself free, even in an unorthodox position. We saw Molnar do it on the near side earlier in the point, and there, a nice little slashing cut through the center. They split the front of that defense, and then trying to pass off something at the back. But as soon as you turn your hips there, you lose sight of the receiver. You've put yourself in such a difficult position, because all you really need to do is just give a little bit of an indication which way you want the disc, and providing you get enough shape on it, there's nothing the defender can really do.
That pull never really quite came back into the pitch. So Terrible Monkeys opting to take it where it had initially flown out the side.
Also in this pool we have quite a lot of geographic variety, because we have Ukraine mixed up against the Furuset Brickers of Norway, and Ventspils from Latvia taking on Ultimate Deluxe from Luxembourg.
Immediate turnover, centering into the middle of the pitch. Outsiterz with another break chance.
I find the brick marks quite punishing on the beach, so I think I probably would have rather taken it from the center of the field to lose a little bit of vertical field position.
Good adjustment from Kovacic. Quick dishes around the back, swinging, finds the option, having to go for a bid from Malik. Beautiful stuff.
And we're back on serve. I must admit, that shot was not as open as perhaps you would like. Certainly, I'm not sure I would have thrown that one, but that's trust. It's knowing your receivers, and if you have a little bit of separation on the sand, that goes quite a long way, because it's so difficult to recover that ground, especially in the short spaces where you can't necessarily get that same first step burst. And this one, he gets it out really quickly. There's no full pivot around. He just sees the space and sends it in there. And it's, as you mentioned, a very good grab from Jakob Malets at the receiving end to put Outsiterz in front for the first time in this game. You wonder if anyone's been, maybe watching a bit of the NBA playoffs, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but comebacks are very in right now. I say this as a very smug Pacers fan.
Hope for any of the basketball fans watching will appreciate that little reference. As we see, the pull has soared out the side, taking in from the brick marker Svatos.
I think the swirling wind is, probably causing some of these pulls to go wayward.
Did have Vushkova going deep. It was a beautiful option. I loved the cut, was wide and available. But again, it's that end zone, it's that direction that's really causing a lot of trouble. That's such as another opportunity, having to reset from that front corner of the end zone. Finds the dump. Parmova. Danek trying to find the option out of the two cutters coming to the front there. Does find a beautiful cut underneath Kautner. Molnar surveying the pitch. Has Danek. Inside shade backhand, just a little too far. That wind really pushing it further away.
On grass, that's a goal, I'm sure of it. But on sand as well, where you can't cover the ground as quickly, you feel like when the opportunity is there, you maybe have to bid earlier than you would otherwise. And that is so agonizing because, I mean, it's maybe fingertips away, but Terrible Monkeys get a little bit of a let-off there because, again, the Outsiterz D-line have shown that they can move the disc pretty consistently.
Pushkova finds the dump. Back to Leslova. Flying grab. Reznik looking deep immediately, was really wanting that option, but not enough beans.
I'm not sure that Pushkova was expecting that necessarily because she was cutting deep, but they didn't really have eye contact with the thrower there, and she wasn't necessarily going full pelt. Feels like more that she was just trying to clear it out a little bit rather than fully committing to making that deep option go.
Low throw, just off the turn. Again, asking a lot of Kautner at this point. Collecting sand on the skin as much as possible. Terrible Monkeys with another opportunity. Looks to center Leslova. Quick dish off. Beautiful forehand. We've finally seen a consistent throw, a consistent shot to that end zone. Paid off, now leveled at 3-3.
Yeah, utilising the size matchup there a little bit as well because Molnar's an explosive defender, but that time lost the positioning to Reznik. And in that opportunity, he was able to utilise the fact that the throw was out in front into space, the outside in trajectory on it as well, just cutting it a bit more out of the defender's path. And Reznik held true at the back of the end zone to level it at 3 apiece. But it does feel like both sides maybe have another gear to kick into at this point. Certainly first game of the weekend. Perhaps that's not a surprise.
Yeah, certainly not. And particularly with throwing, I know that if you're predominantly a grass ultimate player, you're having to readjust how you throw on the sand, adding even more touch than usual, just so that it doesn't zip past your receiver. And so we could be seeing some of that coming into play here. Outsiterz with a wide stack again, low, bit too low for Kmetskova.
And not to criticise either of these teams' beach pedigree, but as landlocked countries, they're not exactly known for their spectacular beaches.
But we are seeing some spectacular ultimate. Popovsky, again asking a lot from that front corner. Just sinking into the sand. Kmetskova for Kautner. Beautiful read. Boxed out the defender perfectly. And then the touch that we're wanting on that flick open side. Phenomenal work.
I think we're used to seeing Kmetskova more in the role of kind of that defensive powerhouse who will generate blocks and then after turn, usually utilising her length going downfield, but this time they've had her pick up the disc quite a lot, and she's been very effective at trying to power the offense with her throws. We see it again, as we'll get a look at a couple of replays, that she's more than happy to put some air underneath it. That shot was perfectly weighted. Had again, a bit more size downfield in Kutner, who's been a really good engine for them, and it was well followed up. Get a look at it again on the replay. Just goes up strong with that right hand. Defender has a sniff, but not enough. And then it's really good hustle to make sure that the first players there afterwards are in Outsiterz shirts. Martin Bakrati with the score.
Low and short pull. It's given Terrible Monkeys the entire center of the pitch available to them.
Accepted foul on the contact on that catch.
High and floaty, but not a problem for Sifnerova. But after getting into power position, a little too much sauce on that flick.
Yeah, she really ripped it. And actually, the receiver had position, and I think you can afford to maybe take a little bit off and hang it up there, because on sand where you can't cover the ground as quickly, I know we keep going on about it, but it is something that you do have to maybe put a bit more finesse on some of those throws than you're used to.
Oh, almost a block in the center. But again, we're seeing some of the outdoor grass throwers luzzing it completely out the back of the pitch.
That is not a sand throw. And I think you could tell from the second it left his hand, and I think, to be honest, he probably knew that as well.
It's just muscle memory. You're so used to getting into that power position thinking, right, I've got to give it everything because I'm only a third of the way down the pitch. I've got to get it another 2/3 that way. But the pitch is significantly smaller here.
And I'll tell you what, it's a good job it is as well. Can you imagine playing beach on an outdoor-sized pitch?
But don't. No.
No, exactly.
Beach is hard enough as it is. It's exhausting.
It is. I mean, we can't stress this enough. It requires a whole different level of endurance, I think, playing on the sand.
And a whole different way of thinking. You have to adjust so much. You have to adjust how you defend, how you cut, how you throw, how you move, how you set up. It's just, honestly, it's a whole different shade of the sport that we don't really talk about how different it is enough. The Terrible Monkeys looking to get this hold back. Well read, just bubbled off the fingertips. No discussion of a foul. Hand up in acceptance of fault. An immediate fast pickup. Centers to Kovacic. Quick dish between hands, getting back into the middle. High rise. Pikarova. This is looking much better in terms of offensive flow. They're just finding that front person coming in from the stack. Not very many options coming up from the end zone, though. Tired legs until we find that front end zone corner. Kvetan bringing it to 5-3.
So it's beginning to open a little bit of a gap here. Certainly, if you look at the seedings coming into this tournament, that's maybe what you'd expect, with Outsiterz seeded 8th and Terrible Monkeys 15th. So the Slovaks are the favourites here. Doing a good job of just kind of slowly grinding that down the pitch, utilising ULTI.TV's own Nasia Pikarova quite a lot as well. It's just a little bounce option, and that time just dishing off towards the far sideline, and then releasing that disc at quite an orthodox angle, pivoting almost backwards slightly, so he was able to get a whip around the force there and zinged it into that front cone on the far sideline. And often, yes, you want to take a little bit off the throws, but also when someone's open in a small space, you always do have to put a little bit of a punch behind it, because otherwise, yeah, it's not going to reach its target in time. This feels like a better pull.
Much better. Difficult to receive on the catch, so having to take it from the sand, but making quick work of it. Defenders weren't able to set up, and already getting at least 6, 7, 8 passes across the front. Beautiful movement, has a deep receiver. Sedlar wanting to catch, but instead picked off.
Yeah, Knap's been an active defensive presence, and you saw Molnar just sagging off a little bit as well to get in the way as well.
Offense seems to have slowed down. The stack is extremely separated, far back away, looking for the dump option quite frequently, and then immediately wanting to go into end zone, but tit for tat, D for D.
Things getting a bit static, so tried to force it down that far sideline. Heads up play there from Prak, getting his second block of the game. Got a big tip on it, got it out of the sideline, and out of danger.
A dangerous corner to be stuck on. This feels very difficult, having to go deep. Almost a trust shot, just hoping that somebody was going to be there to receive it.
Yeah, with nothing going on downfield and they're still rising, you think, I may as well put some air underneath it and see if someone can come up on the end of it. But both sides looking a little bit leggy about halfway through this game time-wise.
Kautna, low throw, beautiful catch from Parmova. Back to Molnar. pick has been called.
You can see where it would have come as well, because there's a lot of clustering in the center of that downfield space.
Just check back in, but a violation. Some of the players were a bit too keen to get moving. Now we're checked back in. Looking for options. Has Kaltner in the dump space, but she's now cut away. Again, the hope shot, keeping the toes in. Beautiful from Knapp. Little toe kick spike.
Yes, slicing inside throw, carving up the field there from Philip Molnar. You may recognize, of course, not just from playing with Outsiterz, but it's been playing with for the past couple of seasons, both in the Open Division now and previously in the Mixed Division as well. And he was one of the people who suited up for the Tokai Super Team last year. And he's not on the contingent this year, but I'm sure he'll be watching London Invite with very eager eyes next weekend. Here's the throw, just put some air underneath it as well. Lovely little bit of toe drag swag there from Knapp, but even if he had decided to go out of bounds and go for the greatest, there was only one player relatively nearby, but it was a white shirt, so you would have had that potential backup opportunity.
I don't think a greatest is most people's first option or first thought when it comes to the disc going out the pitch.
It's so cool. Yes, if you can toe it in, absolutely. I think that's the safer option. But it's just nice to know that should it have been required, there was a white shirt there to back it up.
And the short pull has given the wide open space towards the back. That floated beautifully. So much touch. It's the awaiting hands of Hartova.
That time using the outside in shape to float it over the defender. And I must admit, I think Pekarova was unsettled, a little bit caught off guard by how much float that throw had, because we feels like we've seen a lot of throws really zip forward or die a little bit early, but that one had a little bit of rise and loft in the release that it sailed over her head out of position, and in the end Hartova had a relatively comfortable catch.
Beautiful throw from Svatos. That is exactly the kind of shape and pace and spin that you want from an upwind flick with touch.
I heard a whistle go for timed half, but that won't matter because with a 13-point game, it would have been half at 7 anyway.
And again, another short pull. Big separation in the middle. Kmakova. Legeneva centers. Tkvetan. Again, Knapp in that front end zone line. That was so slick.
That's the smoothest offense we've seen from both sides all day, and I don't think it's particularly close. They had a clear indication of what they wanted to do with each particular pass. They spaced it out very well. 2 players in the backfield, 3 equally spaced out downfield, 1 in the center and 1 each on either sideline, so they gave themselves plenty of room to work. Got these throws out nice and early. And on beach, you know, once you can get things clicking, you can see this happen because you need relatively less separation in order for throws to be deemed viable. But so often, if you get them right, players are cutting at the right times, the continuation's there, you can go bang, bang, bang and really pinball your way down the field before the defense really knows what's up. That's 4 goals now for Mateusz Knapp. He's been a huge presence for Outsiterz so far.
A huge presence amongst a team of really quite talented players. And they've now taken half 7-4. We don't actually have much time in the half. In fact, we have no time. They are 0 minute halftime. So it's just a switch of the end zone, switch of possession if that needs to happen, and then back into gameplay.
Yeah, just the mirrored half, but as it is, it's what we would have had anyway, with Terrible Monkeys receiving in the left-hand end zone.
Looking deep again. Has a receiver trailing over. Perfect read. Reznik, with confidence, ripped out the sky.
There was not a huge amount of separation on that, and that was an opportunity where actually zipping the throw really worked in their favour, because if you float that, because the separation wasn't massive, maybe you allow the defender in there to get a bid, but you rip it, you zip it right down that far sideline, and Reznik had the half step that he needed to just churn down the sand downfield, all the way right in stride to the end zone for the score. I mean, there was only one thing in his mind when he picked this disc up, and it was immediately looking for that deep shot.
Yeah, really low pivot into that forehand, almost kind of leaning back and giving, as you mentioned, perfect amount of zip. That's a circumstance where being a traditional grass player plays in your favor, where you can just absolutely zing it into somebody's chest. I love that pull reception, really getting things going. Quick disc movement. Veskova wanting that break side backhand shot, but doesn't take it on, holsters instead. And ding, 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 receivers goal.
I mean, Outsiterz feel like they found their flow offensively now, don't they? Just coming out early in stall counts. They're getting released early in stall counts. They're doing a very good job of utilizing the width of the field. Maybe you have a quick look downfield, but if someone's open on any surface, to be honest, but especially on beach, I think you have to really utilize that, because so much of it is about being efficient. It's about conservation of energy, conservation of movement. So when you get a free player, take it, and it's going to open up opportunities elsewhere on the field. Smooth as silk down that far sideline to Jan Rosina for the Outsiterz score.
Yeah, they're moving the disc so quickly that I can't actually keep track of who is doing what.
And that's, honestly, that's a great thing. It makes our jobs a lot more difficult, but not sure that's particularly what they're too invested in.
No, certainly not. They do not consider us at all, and they shouldn't.
And yes, correctly so, because I have been known to talk a fair amount of nonsense.
Lejsilova to Reznik. Reznik sends it deep for himself. Shevnerova off the fingertips. The wind just picks it up slightly before reaching the hands of the receiver.
We've talked about how these sideline shots, you don't tend to get a huge margin for error. And I think you saw it there. The disc, there wasn't too much wrong with it. But because you're coming tight to the sideline, you don't have a huge time to adjust and maybe alter your path to attack that throw. And as such, it's agonizingly out of reach of Shevnerova.
So Outsiterz taking their time, just walking it up to the line. Mikhailkova receives again. He's in the middle. Every completely marked off, having to go deep. Has Malek massive bid.
It was enormous. I'm not sure it needed to be quite so spectacular from Malek, but I think, again, that's the beach coming into play, where you feel like you have to take those bids a bit earlier than otherwise you would on grass, because on grass there's no doubt that you can try and chase that out. But he felt, no, he had to go big. And the big man, he was very explosive there, wasn't he?
Had Shevnerova going deep, but didn't like the options. Instead takes the dump. Now Shevnerova under. That was a beautiful throw, but again, slipping out the fingertips, Svatos.
Malek was quite close behind in coverage. And I think just saying, well, I've got to try and really zip this in there, and it made it too hot to handle.
Kovacic finds Pekarova in the middle of the pitch. Malek now on the sideline. The force is really standing off. Having to go across to Parmova. Not very many options coming until they find that person coming off the back of the stack for the score, Kovacic.
I mean, that is fundamentals, really, isn't it? What do you do? Getting a nice tight stack, cuts from the back. It's pretty much one of the first things that a lot of offenses teach when you start trying to set things up. But it's not necessarily about where the cut comes from. It's about when it comes, because he sees the opportunity there with his defender. I think just caught peeking in the backfield too much, maybe conscious about stopping a potential break throw. And it's good recognition there from Kovacic to realize that I'm probably the primary option right now, and B, here is the window. In the end zone especially, you don't necessarily need the biggest amount of separation. You see the opportunity, you have to take it, and you have to be forceful and really drive through it. And that time, yeah, with the first step, as soon as the defender realizes that he's beaten, yeah, he just knows that there's nothing he can do and can only watch the score go in.
The pull landing into sand gives the defense a really solid amount of time to chase down Mako. Fakes, doesn't like the options, looks to middle, finds Bambasova. Bambasova throws deep, has the defender instead. Molnar reads it better than the receivers. Kautna looking for Kmesova. Kmesova takes a couple steps back, just ensuring she has her hands on the disc. Again, looking for more options, does eventually have Molnar. Back to Kmesova. Outsiterz taking their time, just getting it dishing, moving up the line. But not very many cuts actually coming out of the end zone until just now. Stall count rising, finds the dump. This Terrible Monkeys defense doing a fantastic job at shutting any open side option down. Having to move around the back, does eventually find the break side option. Petrasova, beautiful work.
I love the patience outside the end zone there from Outsiterz because they just didn't quite have the cohesion and connectivity downfield. The timing and the synergy wasn't there, but they did the right thing. I think that's partly because the Terrible Monkeys handler marks, they were sat off a little bit to try and stop that downfield movement. And Outsiterz quite rightly recognizing that and using the opportunities to just play it around the back or try and use the width of the field so we can change some angles of attack. And eventually it's a little inside shot through that opens the break side space to find the score. And we have a timeout now on the field.
You can see by the body language that they're feeling a little bit tired. And so as the teams take a break, we'll take a little bit of a break here in the booth too. We'll see you in a minute.
We live in a world where everything can be referenced online. Imagine if the greatest moments in our sport were never filmed. Eurodisc continues to do what it takes to make free-to-watch live streams a reality. Let's leave nothing to the imagination. We'll consume the action live, and we'll support those that help to make it happen. If it wasn't streamed, it didn't happen. Eurodisc.
What a grab! Oh my! Somehow they do it!
Here we go.
This year, London Invite is bigger than ever, with 8 teams in the Open Division, 8 teams in the Women's Division, and for the first time, a full 8-team mixed division.
With 5 World Games teams, USA, Canada, Australia, Germany, France.
As well as the Tokai Super Team, is sure to be the ultimate showcase of the best in the world.
More teams, more streams, more stars, more ultimate.
More excitement.
You're not going to want to miss London Invite 2025.
And welcome back to EBUCC Outsiterz versus Terrible Monkeys in the mixed division. Currently, Outsiterz up 10-5 after a brief timeout call. We're going to see how these teams can readjust. They've certainly warmed up to this game. Terrible Monkeys starting out on offense, a flying bid from the defender. Unsuccessful. Sedlar surveys. Has a receiver looking up the line. Beautiful work. Reznik. It's the middle. Around the back break has Shifnerova. Great bid, putting her body on the line, but the throw was just too far.
Tried to get the throw out of his hands quickly, and in doing so, went for the no pivot style backhand, kind of shifting the angle of the knees to try and rake the disc around, and actually probably was a little bit more time than he realized, and probably did have time to take the pivot out and just a little bit of a softer throw in there as it is rushed, and it's going to give Outsiterz another break opportunity.
Fakes the deep. Dish is back behind. Has Pekarova. Again, looks deep for a second and then centers. No deep options at the moment. Everyone still seems to be level or just behind the disc. Kovacic back to Pekarova. Getting this moving, has wanted the deep option, does hesitate, takes it on instead. Has to go too high a bit early. A lot of pressure from Sedlar under that.
I think if he'd taken the throw earlier, would have had a bit more space for it, but there was a lot of traffic in the middle, so I think he just clutched it a second time just to make sure that he was confident in the option. And in that time, the cutter had developed towards this near side a little bit more. And so when that throw hangs up and fades towards the break side, it's over his head now to reach.
Not for many options available. Wanting to look deep, that disc is fading out towards the far sideline. Not a problem whatsoever, even with a bidding defender applying a lot of pressure. Reznik just takes it in his stride.
He's been a very effective option in that deep space, has Reznik. Sometimes they've zipped it to him, other times like there, they've really floated it up. And it feels like at the moment, because the Terrible Monkeys offense isn't necessarily clicking at full strength, that they're trying to manufacture some of those quote-unquote Route 1 scores where we can just put a bit of air underneath it, go from end zone to end zone, and get them off the field. It should be 10-6, not 11-4.
The score now at 10-6 in Outsiter's favor. And Terrible Monkeys taking on that hold. Not very clean to start with, but secured themselves that point. The pull floated out the pitch. Now taking a brick. I believe this may be our first bricked pull.
Yeah, we've had a few land out of bounds, but they've not necessarily been brought in at the brick mark because they tend to go out a bit earlier. But on beach especially, the brick mark feels pretty punishing.
Yeah, all it takes is a gentle flick, a gentle little push of the disc, and then you're in the end zone, as beautifully demonstrated on a platter for us.
And that is it's the power of landing the pull in bounds, because if you don't from the brick mark, I mean, it's not a huck really, is it? It's just a leading pass. How many leading pass draws do you think these players have done over the span of their ultimate careers? I'd say probably a fair few. A little bit of outside in shape to fade it towards that far sideline. It's going to take it over the head of the defender, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be the full beans. Sometimes you can just put a little bit of touch and finesse on the throw. There's the one on the previous point, and then we're seeing now back-to-back, they're utilising the long game into the end zone because the wind is not completely dead, but you'll see that those flags are not particularly stiff at all, very limp in the background, and that means that, hey, as if it wasn't on before, the deep game is very much on now.
This is the calm before the storm, though, Benji. We are going to be in for a lot of rain, probably some wind.
There have been potential thunderstorms as well, which I must admit, not massively looking forward to.
The pull fielded with perfection. Mako on this close sideline, trying to look for middle, does take the break option. Beautiful floaty backhand around. And streaks deep, but again, that disc stayed out of the pitch the whole time, so we'll be coming in pretty much in the middle, just past the brick mark.
It's a cardinal sin, that really, isn't it? If you're going to do one thing, make sure that you keep, if you can't keep it in bounds for the whole thing, at least keep it in bounds as long as you can, because if you get the edge slightly wrong and it doesn't come back, you are sacrificing a lot of field position. And as we've seen on the beach, that is putting yourself in a very perilous position. Slap bang on midfield on this near sideline. Looks like they're going to try and force them towards this near side, see if they can trap them. Apparently not.
Not a problem for Kovacic. Finds Malak in the middle of the pitch. Pekarova centers back. Malak wanting to find Pekarova again, but instead finds Kovacic. And here's that patience that you mentioned earlier on, Benji, in this end zone space. But, oh, what a throw. I love that option. Right over the top of multiple defenders.
I love Lutzi. She's been so calm and measured normally. Just, grind it underneath. Let's break the force, or, let's keep the disc moving. Let's not do anything too fancy, too out of phase. Except now, because there's so much space on that far side of the end zone. The force is quite flat. I back myself here to use quite an indoorsy style throw here. This blade towards the back corner, I think, got the eyes and able as well, even with Reznik sagging off into that lane, to curl it around him towards the back cone. when Malets catches the score. It's now 2 goals, an assist and a block for Jakub Malets. First assist of the game for Lucia Pekarova.
And make sure you're keeping up with the rest of the tournament itself. So coming up on this pitch in the next game slot is Copenhagen Spinners from Copenhagen. And Enamzones Rostock, so the 9th and the 13th seed in the women's division for Pool A. So the first women's division game that we'll have on this field. Super exciting matchup. And of course, like and subscribe for ULTI.TV, bringing you action all weekend from here in Gdańsk.
And while you're there, if you want to support more live video coverage as well, especially with the London Invite coming up next week, and you want access to all of our live stream pitches, then make sure you become a channel member to get more live streamed Ultimate. They had the isolation there, but evidently not the communication.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what Prak was looking for there. Oh, maybe looking for Shifnarova. And I appreciate and love the determination to continue going after it, even though it was so far out of anyone's reach.
I mean, it felt like a lost cause, but who knows? A sudden gust of wind could have come and kept it floating forever, or maybe not.
You got to keep going, keep pushing for it, as we see here. Beautiful bid, Michalkova. The clap catch layout. Again, looking for Michalkova, does find her. Gentle spike into the sand. Really quick work of that.
Yeah, what a way to get the game-winning break. Just banging it downfield there is Molnar. Superb layout snag from Esther Michalkova, as he mentioned. And then they'll just play the short game outside the end zone, pop their way in. And remember at the start of the game when they gave up 2 early breaks, I don't think Outsiterz do, because from that point forward, as soon as they got that first point on the board, they seemed so much more assured. They weren't broken for the rest of the game. They cleaned it up significantly in the second half as well. They turned it over just twice after the interval. And to be honest, if they can continue to, maybe work out some of those early kinks, Outsiterz are a decent bet to go quite far in this tournament. Do you have a look at the stats on your screen there?
Yeah, quite comparable in terms of the number of turns, 10 to 14. Break chances as well, relatively similar, but of course, Outsiterz were just able to convert their way through the game and bringing them to their first win of the tournament, Benji. What a game to start off the mixed division. We've got so much more action coming up here for the rest of this weekend. For Benji Rees, I've been Gigi Morrison. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks.
Merci beaucoup.